There's only 4 learning units. The 4 learning units are based on the 4 projects that you need to submit. Project 1 and 2 is basically a copy of your research assignment you did for Introduction to Research. Project 3 is based on the content in the textbook that you needed to do for your POE, but you're not redoing or going back to your POE. You're just applying sampling population, the paradigm research design, data analysis, data collection to your research assignment, to your research project. And then project 4 is project 1, 2, and 3 plus 1, 2, I think 3 new sections for your final POE. So what you're doing basically for RPCO without any ISTARs, like you guys who don't have any ISTAR for this module, is you are building on your research assignment. And please do just submit the research assignment for it's split in half. You have to make improvements based on the feedback that I gave you for your research assignment. I know for those of you who don't have feedback for those of you doing the Bachelor of Entrepreneurship, please let me know so I can go back and just redo your feedback. Some of you did email me and I did give you the feedback, but there might be still a few of you who don't have feedback. So you have to use that feedback you did for the Introduction to Research assignment and submit or make improvements, reflect on the rubric for project 1 and for project 2, and yeah, reflect on rubric, make improvements, and then resubmit. Let's see, project 1 is 35 marks, project 2 is 35 marks, which are both 15% towards a final mark, and then project 3 is actually worth 40 marks, or 40% of your final mark. It's worth, I think, 80 marks. 30% towards the final mark, and then your POE is actually only worth 30% of the final mark, but it's obviously the most difficult because you need to put everything together from project 1 to 3 with the 3 new sections as well that you need to do for project 4 or your POE. Yeah, 500 to 600 words isn't a lot, but you see that it's only your title, background, research problem, relevance, your research question, your objectives, or your hypotheses. So it's everything that you did for your research assignment from your title all the way to your objective or hypotheses. So most of your words for that is going to come in your background, research problem, and relevance. And then obviously your title is going to be around 15 words. Your question is going to be around 17 words maybe, and your objective around 17 words for 16 words, or your hypotheses around like 15 words each, maybe a bit more. So today we're just going to overview some content. Please, as you guys are doing currently, asking questions throughout, raise your hand if you want to ask questions over the mic as well. Type general technical question in the chat box, and obviously we're going to end off with a Q&A and with a short quiz as well. Yes, Dominic, same research topic. Technically, if you want to, you can change that research topic for research practice, but it's not advisable. You got feedback on your Introduction to Research assignment, and based on what you said in your assignment and on the feedback, you make improvements on that. If you restart in research practice, then you're losing an entire assignment's worth of feedback. So you can, but it's not advised. And we are using the same textbook. So I heard a mic. Did someone want to ask a question? Okay, otherwise let's continue. Okay, like you guys can see here, 15%, 35 marks, 15%, 35 marks, 40% of a final mark, which is 80 marks. Projects 1 and 2 most likely not going to spend a lot of time on each of these, depending on how well you did in your research assignment for Introduction to Research and how much changes are required. You'd see that project one is due. I did send in the email today. By the end of August, or what project one is due somewhere in August, project two is due somewhere in September, and then project three is due by close to the end of October. Project three, you guys need to spend a significant amount of time on. We will at least 2 sessions, and you will have that national support sessions. I believe Paula will share that again for project three and then for project four as well. So you're going to have to spend a lot of time with project three. It's not that difficult, it's just that you need to have your paradigm design, data analysis, data collection, sampling, and population correct. Thank you, Anushka. Yeah, okay, right. 15 August, 8 September, 23 October. So 15 August is actually still a while. It's just over 3 weeks. I think that's a Friday, 8 September, and then 23 October. And please don't wait for the results for project one and for project two before continuing. Don't wait for the results for project one before continuing with project two. Um, the same with project two for project three, but obviously you'd have your results by then. And then project three, I hope your summative project is a bit later in November, because I don't know why project three is that late in the semester, 23 October. But yeah, we're going to have to, myself, Paula, and the other lecturers are going to have to rush to mark the project three, which takes a bit of time. And you can see the word counts there. Strictly stick to those word counts. 500 minimum, 600 maximum. If you have like 620 or 630 or something like that, that's fine. But please don't go up to 700 or something like that. Then I'm going to have to, like your research objectives, I'm going to start cutting. Also, just to save on your word count. And everyone that's listening now and listening to the recording, let's stick to one research question, not to confuse it, because I've noticed those of you who do 2 or 3 research questions, you go way off track. Your first research question is usually fine for most of you, and then your second and third, you go into different research directions. Remember that for research, you need to be very narrowed, very specific, one small area within a large field of research. So usually when you have multiple research questions, you're still aiming at the same research topic, but it's just small parts of it. So just to ensure to save on words, firstly, and then secondly, to not to make you lose marks unnecessarily, focus on one research question. Just values for the semester. I want to focus on accountability. This is your work. These are your projects. Remember, you don't have IS tasks. You don't. We only see each other every 2 weeks, and the submission dates are quite far from each other, and you guys need to basically continually work on your research assignment. It can't be something that you leave for 2, 3, 4 weeks. You have to make an effort, plan, you spend time on your research, and as much as possible. Maybe use other journal articles or additional research required. Yeah. You can add in journals if you want to for your projects one and two. You don't have to keep the same references. You can adjust it as much as you want to. If you maybe didn't do well in your research problem, you can redo your entire research problem as long as it still fits with your topic and your research title. You'd also see that you guys still had a research topic for your introduction to research assignment. For your project one, you don't need a topic anymore, so they're already cutting a bunch of words. Honesty, I'll always be honest with you, so you should be always honest with me as well. You're here to pass and you're here to do as well as you can. If you're not honest with me, I cannot help you. And I want to thank a lot of you, like Ellen and Anushka, Ristine, Isabella, Marty, and a bunch of others of you who emailed me throughout the semester last semester, and some of you already started emailing me now asking me questions. It's good because then you have a better understanding of what is required and what you don't know. And then secondly, it puts me in a better position to help you guys. So if I see there's a bunch of questions from you guys regarding a certain topic or a certain area of research, maybe the theoretical framework or whatever, then I can mention that and talk about that in our next collab or send an email regarding that. And then discipline, are you goal-driven or are you task-driven? Be consistent and work towards success. What's the difference between goal-driven and task-driven? Some people find, how can I say, they find pleasure in achieving goals. Some people find pleasure in completing tasks. So some people, for example, if they have a set deadline, the closer the deadline comes, the quicker or the more work or the more time they spend on completing the task. But some people are more task driven, where when they get a goal or they get the deadline, they're so focused on the task that they do it as quickly as possible. And I think as a baseline, it's very important that you understand the difference. And usually guys are more goal driven and girls are more task driven. And you see even that if you reflect on the past few years or even in high school, um, the closer the deadline comes, like exams or whatever, guys start learning more and more. And then on the flip side, girls usually prepare quite early and study quite early so that they are ready. But that's obviously a generalization and not true for everyone. Um, the students usually do. So that's a 50-50 most Marty, because um, in terms of do students perform better introduction to research practice, because introduction to research, the saving grace for a lot of students is that POE, because the POE, even though you have to spend a lot of time on the POE is relatively easy. All the answers are in those 3 articles. So for a lot of students, that's their saving grace. Whereas research practice, I think some students don't take it seriously. Many students don't take it seriously. So what happens is they think, oh, okay, I just basically redo my research assignment for introduction to research. They spend almost no time on it. They maybe start, if their due date is, what was the 15th of August, they start on the 14th of August. They see all the feedback that I gave them and they think, I don't know what to do or how to do it. And they didn't listen to the collabs or to the extra content and stuff share. And then they just basically goes um, quickly past them and they lose a bunch of marks. So just for example, if you got 75% for introduction to research assignment, don't expect you're going to get 75% for project 1 and project 2 if you don't put in effort to make improvements. Different to your introduction to research assignment for project 2, and it's a bit more practical. We expect a bit more of you. So as per the rubric and as per our discussion in the next few collabs. So please, guys, take it seriously. Spend the time on it weekly as the date gets closer. Spend time on it so that you are ready and prepped to submit it. Just a good research proposal which you're aiming for. So the only reason why students don't do better in research practice is because they don't take it seriously. They don't do well on projects 1 and 2. They don't realize project 3, even though it's only 80 marks, is so much more difficult than they thought. And then they panic for their final submission, and then they do relatively well for their final submission, but because they actually put in the time and effort, they read my feedback, and they do relatively well, but because their projects 1, 2, and 3 didn't go well, their final mark isn't that good. So Colleen, you have to okay, actually you can't request the reviewing anymore because it has to be within those 5 days after your marks has been released. Maybe you can still log it. You can just ask if you want to see this actual assignment, but the marks are released. It's available on your portal, but it should be there, but you can't see the feedback because you have to request to view the feedback and the script. So yes, Dylan, you're making adjustments to your research assignment. So not your POE. Don't consider your POE at all. You're making adjustments in project 1 and 2 for your research assignment. So if I just go back. So for project 1 and project 2, you do making adjustments, improvements to make sure it fits better with the research practice based on the rubrics. And you see there's also the documents that goes through each section, what's required in each section for your research from your research assignment last semester for your introduction to research for projects 1 and 2. And then for project 3, that's relatively new. That's new stuff that you're going to do based on your research. You're going to state what's your paradigm, which is going to be interpretivism or positivism, your research design as a continuation of that. You're going to state what your population is, and you're going to do a bit of an example for that. Sampling, data collection, you can do a questionnaire, data analysis for project 3, which is 40% of your final marks. You guys need to take that seriously. And yeah, you also for project 3, you reference your textbook. So this is where you start actually referencing your textbook, and then you introduce other credible sources with project 3. So what I want you guys to do this semester is attend each class. If you guys attend all 8 classes, please, or lectures, please attend all 8 lectures this semester. If you only attend one, please at least try and attend two, if not all 8. 100% pass rate, aim for better mark in semester 1 and aim for 75% or higher. Why? So that you can do well, so you can become smarter. And remember, I'm always here, and you're not wasting my time, you're wasting your own. I'm always going to be here. If there's only 22 of you in this lecture, which is way lower than it should be. But even if there's 0, none of you here, I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to make a recording. So you're not going to waste my time, but you guys are going to waste your time. So try and attend live, otherwise listen to the recording. You must review the learning units before the collabs. You must use the feedback you got from your, introduction to research for commerce assignment, your IRCO assignment for projects 1 to make all 3 projects and use the feedback for your POE. You must ask questions during the collab, as you guys have been doing. Thank you very much. And it does not matter if it's some questions. If you don't ask, how must I know what you don't understand? And remember to take notes. I thoroughly explain what is required in each section of each submission. And lucky you guys, again, no ask tasks. This can be your favorite or your least favorite module. Why? It is difficult, but it is very rewarding. You basically chose what you research, and you choose basically how well you're going to do this semester. And I promise you, by the time you submit that project and you actually put in the time and effort for project 1, 2, 3, and then finally project 4, your final submission, you will feel that sense of satisfaction because you spent time, you attempted something difficult, you achieved that goal. And when you get that mark, you will be happy with that mark based on the amount of time you placed within that assignment. So a good research proposal. What's a good research proposal? It is a clear and detailed description of all the steps you intend to follow to complete the research project. Your research proposal, your final summative, is word count is 5,000. It's worth 30% of your final mark. And it covers all 4 learning units. The main problem, if you go back to Mark's question earlier, with the research proposal specifically, is the golden thread. Now, you guys should know already what the golden thread is. Basically, if I read your title, I read your research question, I read your theoretical framework, your population, your sampling method, and the very final section, which is anticipated contribution, everything needs to make sense. Everything needs to fit within your research topic, within your research, for your research title. I read your research title. I need to be able to identify what the population is, who the population is. I need to identify what variables you are or would want to investigate. And I need to identify if it's a quantitative or qualitative research topic. So project one, you're doing a title, background, research problem, relevance, research questions, and objectives or hypotheses. Project two, you're doing a theoretical framework, literature review, and conceptualization. Project three, you're doing your paradigm and design, population sampling, data collection, data analysis methods. And then for your final project four, you're doing project one, two, project three. Again, you're just making improvements based on my feedback, and then you're adding 3 sections. So just as a quick example, determining the relationship between employee retention and development workshop participation in SMEs of Nelson Mandela Bay, so small to medium-sized enterprises of Nelson Mandela Bay. Is this a qualitative or quantitative research topic? Am I going to use a qualitative or quantitative research methodology? And then why do you guys say that? Quant relationships. Quant. The quantitative. Yes, so it is that word research. We're trying to take one thing and we compare it to another thing because we have an independent and a dependent variable. The dependent variable is dependent on the independent variable. We want to see what changes there are in the variable. With qualitative research, we don't want to track the changes of one variable as it relates to another variable. We're just trying to subjectively investigate and try and make develop a deeper understanding of a certain research topic or certain research variable. So my theory that I could use is Herzberg's two-factor theory, which talks about the motivation of employees, more specifically what an employer requires in terms of baseline maintenance factors and motivational factors, and that's something that could link to this research topic or this research title. The concepts minimally that I need to conceptualize with at least 2 sentences with 2 references, academic references, ideally. Employee retention, development workshops, SMEs, and other participation or workshop participation. My population would be employees of SMEs. And then obviously I'm going to sample from Nelson Mandela Bay because that's where I can feasibly do, because that's where I come from or that's where I stay. Sampling, because it's quantitative, I'm preferably going to use a probability sampling method. Why in quantitative research would I want to use a probability sampling method like simple random sampling? Does anyone have any idea? More accurate results. Yes, that I think you hit one of the nails on the head. Avoid distortion. So with probability sampling, we have no bias. With probability sampling, me as the person that is researching the trying to identify the relationship between employee retention, development, workshop participation. I'm trying to get the most accurate results because for quantitative research, I'm going to use statistical analysis, and I don't want the statistics to be skewed. I don't want inaccurate numbers, basically, because I'm going to use questionnaires with closed-ended questions. So for probability sampling, I try and find us a database or list of emails or whatever. Some in the olden days, we actually sent it via post, and I email them the questionnaire. They don't, in a certain sense, know who I am. I obviously don't know who they are. I just got this list of emails based on my population population based on my population parameters. I email it to them. My response rate is usually very low because people don't care about these questionnaires, and they submit it, and as little bias as possible. But it's usually not usually. A lot of the time, it's not possible. So for quantitative research, I can use the non-probability sampling method, but for qualitative research, I can only use non-probability sampling methods because of the nature of research, of qualitative research, because I want an in-depth understanding. I need to actually interview people and analyze the data as the transcripts based on the recording that I made through the interview. And even if I interview them over the telephone, there's much more bias going into that data collection method because I'm actually communicating with that person. I actually listen to what they're saying, and I might go off, not off topic of my research schedule or not research schedule, my interview schedule, my list of interview questions, because they are saying something that's not part of my question, but that's relevant to my topic. So I investigate what based on what they said. But yes, Anushka, to avoid distortion, because in quantitative research, we want as little inaccuracies or as little distortions. Data collection, I'm going to use survey questionnaires with close-ended question. Why close-ended questions? Because I can place numbers on close-ended questions, basically. Yes, no, 1, 2. If I use the Likert scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Meaning that I can use then those numbers for descriptive statistics and for inferential statistics if I'm using a probability sampling method. And we'll go into a bit more detail in that in the next few collabs or lectures. And my data analysis method, statistical analysis, both descriptive and inferential statistics. My project one, my title needs to be concise. I need to be able to describe the nature of my research topic in that title, the purpose, and it needs to be descriptive. So revision might be necessary. If you got a 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5, most likely you wouldn't need to change your title. But if there are maybe sections of your research problem or your research question changes, then you might need to make adjustments to your research title. Your background, this is an introduction to your study. Again, you need to describe the nature of your study, maybe any controversies or debates within the field, and just introduce like the relevance of the study in your background. So why is this study necessary? You need to, if you go back to this example, I'm going to have to, in my introduction or in my background, state that what employee retention is, what development workshop participation is. I need to discuss SMMEs and even mention why why is it relevant to Nelson Mandela Bay, and just maybe on about and reference other journal articles that talks about employee retention and that talks about development workshop participation of employees. And then my research problem, which is probably the most important section of your entire proposal, because in your research problem, you are telling me what you're actually going to research, why you're researching it, what the main issues is, and how you are aiming at a solution or what the actual solution is of the research problem. You're not telling me this is the solution because you don't know the solution. That's why the research problem is there, but you're telling me how we can get closer to the solution. If I go back to determining the relationship between employee retention, development, workshop participation, SMEs or Nelson Mandela Bay, in my research problem, I might elaborate on that um, that there are already research that came out that employee retention dips if there are no development workshops or employees are willing to participate in development workshops. Or I can have a contradictory statement that's there, but this workshop maybe in Johannesburg, or sorry, this research from Johannesburg states that the participation development workshop doesn't actually, there's no actual relationship with employee retention. So the development workshops isn't that important for employee retention specifically. But when I talk about employee retention, I'm not talking about employee turnover. I'm not talking about employee performance. I'm talking about retention. So are they, maybe how long are they retained in my business? Are they retained longer, the more or the better they participate in development workshops? So that's my topic. That's my research direction. I'm not going too far off in other directions. So for your research problem, how do you know if it is a good research problem? It shows these five from page 62. These five, these five aspects are represented in your research problem. You do not list these in your research problem, but you use them as a guideline. So starting with answerability, um, is it actually researchable through observation? So if you were to actually interview people, or you were to actually, and you're not actually send out questionnaires for people to answer, is your research problem and your research question actually answerable? And is it feasible? One way of making it feasible is having access to the population, for example, um, based on time, based on the sample, based on the population side, the methodology, everything like that. So that's why I told you guys already last semester, it needs to be relatively narrow. It needs to be a population that's actually accessible. So how can I access my population? Well, if I stay in the city where I want to sample the population in, like Nelson Mandela Bay or Johannesburg or Durban or whatever it might be. What else makes it feasible? The population isn't too large that I can't draw a feasible sample from. And if you're doing quantitative research, you need to do a sampling calculator for project 3. Use a sampling calculator for project 3. If you're doing qualitative research, you are just going to find academic references that state that um, 10 interviews will be conducted based on the population that fits with the population parameters, or until saturation has been met. It might be 8 interviews that you conduct, but usually not more than like 15 interviews, because you need to think of time um, spent interviewing people. It takes a significant amount of time to sample people. So to actually go and find people that fit your population, set up a time to meet with them and actually sit down and go through an interview with them and ask them the questions, because usually an interview can take anywhere from half an hour to 2 hours, depending on your interview and interview schedule and how much the people actually want to talk. The scope, is your research too broad or is it too narrow maybe? So most of you struggle with research topics that's too broad. And if you go back to answerability as well, some of your research, based on your research assignment, I can go to your first year business textbook, open up a chapter and find the answer there. So that's another thing with research, guys. Your research should not be um, already answered, if I'm saying, if you guys understand what I'm saying. So you can't research um, what would be a very simple thing? The effects of good leadership on employee performance. Why not? Because we know that usually the better the leader is, the better employee performance is. That's like almost common sense these days. And you'd find that in any research textbook, any business management textbook, for example. The theoretical value, um, would answering this research problem, aiming at this research problem, would your research actually have value um, in this field of research, which again, and is scope the relevance, not necessarily this, but it's linked to it. Even theoretical value is linked to your relevance. And here it is, number 5, relevance. Is your research problem relevant? You need to be able to describe the phenomena, and it should not be trivial. It shouldn't be like a nonsense research problem. It should be a relevant research problem. What does a nonsense research problem mean? Um, it would be something like um, what be something in BCom that's like trivial? Does drinking coffee improve concentration during working hours, something like that? It's something that's already established and it's trivial. It's not very important. Or maybe uh, something like, why do employees wear professional clothes when they go to work? It's something trivial. It's not important. Most likely it's just because within the policies of the company, they need to wear professional clothing. So it's trivial, it's not important. But uh, um, these five criteria is based on a research problem, and you guys can go and read on page, I think it's 62 to 66 of your textbook. It's not specifically relevant. What I need to see in your relevance is that it's actually research and not your opinion. It should be as unbiased as possible. So even though you most likely chose a topic because you find it interesting, when you write about your topic, doesn't it shouldn't show that you're biased. It should be as much as possible. And mentioning the normal supporting existing literature. So you should ask the question, is it worth studying? What are the influences on the research direction you are heading in? So what is your research uh, relevant? You need to be able to, I think that the final part is obviously linking it to your degree, and you don't have to actually state that it links to the BCom or to my Bachelor of Entrepreneurship degree because of this, and this. Is it breaking up again? I just get a surprise face again if it's breaking up. I have one. Then it must be my PC. Sorry, just hold on. Okay, guys, can you confirm that I'm still recording? Does it sound better? Am I still breaking up? Thumbs up if I'm not breaking up. Surprised if I am breaking up. Okay, not breaking up. Okay. Please again, just let me know if I'm breaking up again. Uh, Hopefully my PC isn't breaking. My laptop. Your research question. Guys, for your research question, what you do is you take your research title, you paste it in your research question, and you either put how, what, most likely one of those two before your title. For your research objective, if you're doing qualitative research, you take your title, you paste it with under research objectives, and you just state to explore blah 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 blah, to determine blah 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 blah. Okay, it might be teams as well. Okay. Really, it's not a continuing issue. And then hypothesis, quantitative research. Uh, for your main hypothesis or your H1, you're going to or your HA, you're going to state that there is a relationship. For your HO, you're going to state there's no relationship. And just another example. So exploring the perceptions of Port Elizabeth councillors in terms of GNU's possibility as a successful government. So obviously qualitative, what makes it qualitative? The word exploring, the word perceptions, and the fact there's no real relationship. I'm not trying to compare one thing to another. What are the perceptions of Port Elizabeth councillors in terms of the GNU's possibility as a successful government. Objective to explore the you can basically see I just basically copy and pasted it from one to the next. Again, I don't want you guys to do a second objective, so let's skip over that. In my background, I'm going to contextualize my title. I'm going to contextualize councils. I'm going to contextualize what the Government of National Unity is. I might even link it back to the original GNU, Government National Unity, right after apartheid. The ANC and the National Party worked together for a few years to try and assist the ANC that hasn't been in any significant political or part of government before that, so that to be set up to um, serve the people of Africa better. Giving context to the GNU, term GNU comes from success, and then maybe even just link it to Port Elizabeth. Research problem, I'm going to argue the reasoning for the study. Why do I want to know the perceptions of these counselors? What is the actual problem? And then why it should be studied. So basically, I'm going to why is it important to know the perceptions of these PE counselors with regard to GNU? Because obviously they're still part of as extensions of the government. Um, so again, golden thread, guys. You stay within there. You stay in your lane, basically. These three sections must include academic references, your background, your research problem, and your relevance. Just as a reminder of what we did earlier, values and our goals, why you are here to make a success of your life, to get a good or better job, to graduate from this degree, pass this module. Deadline driven versus task driven. You guys are just going to have to read that through in your own time, and I need that. And then what I want you guys to end off on, if there's no further questions, please either scan this QR code or you can go to one of these two links. I'll post it in the chat now as well. And I want us to complete the quiz. I'm going to give you guys like 2 minutes to join, and then I'm going to start the quiz on my side. I'll just share the links now in chat. Yo, guys, I hope I'm still on slide 5 of 21 for you guys. Me or anything, but I hope it's only you because else didn't miss all the other slides. Okay. I see a lot of you joined already. I'm going to order the quiz. It's going to start in a minute, seconds. Click on sync to presenter. Thank you. I didn't even know that. Okay, as it's going to start in less than a minute, how this works is it's a mastery peak. So those of you who haven't used quizzes before, this is a newer part of quizzes where you might find that you redo questions if you got it wrong until you master it. And the way quizzes states that you mastered it uh, in the sense, I just want to put off the sound, is that if you achieve 80%, so 80% of the questions you got correct. So you're going to redo it until you get to that mastery peak. It's going to start in 15 seconds. I'm going to share For those of you who want to watch your fellow classmates compete with you. Uh, Starting 3, 2, 1. Well done to Cam, being the first master. Now see 66283 is close, Colleen is close, Christine is close. Magela, well done. Okay, guys, I'm going to give it another minute. I see a few of you have reached the mastery peak. Oh, well done, 66283, being the oh, God. I'm going to say Colleen is at the top. 66283 is on second place, but Colleen is at the top. I don't know how that works. Come on, guys, another minute and I'm going to end it off. Most of you seem to have achieved mastery. 10, 9, 8, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well done, top scorer. Well done, winner. First to the mastery peak. Well done, guys. These also again, warrior or whatever that is. So 47% of you got it right in the first try. 67% of you after repetition. So this shows that you guys are willing to repeat and try and do better. Let's see if you can quickly go through the questions, some of the questions. So which question is there a lot of red? An average attempts 1.8, 1.2. Maybe let's look at this one. Check what the pedantic question is. Why can't I review the questions? Go back to not okay. Okay now. Okay, guys. Hopefully that mastery peak was helpful. The quiz was helpful. Hopefully in the next few days, I'll start uploading stuff to all the for the RPCO ARC groups and stuff like that. If you guys don't have any questions, enjoy the rest of your night. But I'll start uploading content and stuff. I'll post a recording as well. I'll share the recording tomorrow as well. Yeah, no, I think it helped a lot of you. I think repetition is very important for to learn. Yeah, Ellen, I hope by tomorrow or hopefully by the end of the week it is showing. I think so far it's only the Bachelor of Entrepreneurship that's showing. Otherwise, thank you guys very much for coming. Please remind the rest of the class to join the sessions as well. And thank you for participating as well.